Get more folks, but why don't we go ahead and get it kicked off here? I'm sure Chad and Philip, you two probably already have heard this initial spiel anyway. But let's get into it. So thanks guys for joining. We just wanted to share some updates and specifics on the residential market access program in particular. So we're going to go through a few kind of background things here. If Tyler, you want to move to the next one. So just giving some background on where this is and who we are, all that good stuff. So the residential market access program is going to be focused primarily, at least right now in 2022, in MCE's territory. So they're the one CCA that is a full-blown program administrator. And we'll talk a little bit about Recurve's history with them. But, MCE was one of the initial CCAs back maybe 10, 15 years ago now. And you can see the map of the territories they cover there, 37 member communities and over 500,000 customers at this point. So that's MCE, that's a territory we'll be looking at. And I'm sure you guys are familiar with Recurve, but just as a refresher, we really provide two core functions. Number one is we're a demand flexibility analytics platform. So everything we do is born out of advanced measurement and verification. We'll pull in that AMI meter data from really any premise, residential, commercial, build up a counterfactual baseline in keeping with population NMEC. And then we can do a whole bunch of cool, fun, exciting, valuable stuff with that baseline, all the way from targeting and savings forecasting to ongoing measurement and verification to delivering what really is a number two here, a transactive energy platform, and really creating the market for virtual power plants. And that's effectively what the flex market is, and the flex market is what market access has been based on. So we're really using that platform to deliver this VPP type structure so that anyone who's qualified can bring in projects and really get paid for the performance delivered and help reduce the emerging summer peak energy issues. All right, so market access specific history here. So Recurve and MCE, we really worked together and architected the first flex market. It's really our name for it. And it was really commercially focused. It was running throughout 2021. Actually got kicked off even before that a little bit. But that was really the foundation and the basis for market access. And the market was designed such that we're using ratepayer funds to pay at a cost-effective rate that's based on real grid value. And that grid value is housed in the avoided cost curve. And that's something that's been adapted somewhat for market access to smooth out some of those peaks, introduce some peak kickers to really align with the results that we want to see this summer. But based on that initial deployment with MCE and the success we're seeing there, there was that emergency proclamation over last summer where Governor Newsom said, like, hey, anybody bring in ideas or funding opportunities to try to reduce this peak problem we're going to have. So one of the core solutions that they honed in on was that flex market, which is kind of genericized as market access, allocated $150 million in ratepayer funds to that. And that's split up between all the program administrators. So, MCE, SCE, SDG&E, and PG&E. And that's something that's going to be run for 2022 and 2023, and then likely beyond that. So the structure can exist beyond that. We're going to see how the emergency proclamation plays into that. So today, we're really going to be talking about the residential program in 2022, where they've added this additional funding. And I think it's roughly $2.5 million or so in incentives for residential projects in the MCE territory. So that's really the basis and foundation for all this. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Tyler to dig into all the details here.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So I want to start just giving like a high level conceptual overview of like how like market access functions, from the perspective of someone who's submitting projects, and then talk a little bit about the value of different projects in the market and how we come up with those values, how you as a participating aggregator in these programs can come up with those values, talk a little bit about how to submit a project into the market. It's an incredibly simple process, which is, I think one of the major achievements of this is how easy it is, because it's based on actual metered performance of your projects. And then talk a little bit about signing up, which we probably don't need to talk too much about, but and then there'll be some time at the end for questions as well. So how does it work from like a very high level overview? Aggregators implement energy savings projects. Whatever it is that you're doing that's going to save energy, you implement that project, and Recurve is going to measure the energy savings that a project delivers at every hour of the year, right at the meter. Kilowatt hours, like Matt mentioned with the avoided cost curve, kilowatt hours are saved at different hour of the year, at different hours of the year are valued differently. And different technologies have different approved lifespans. So when you kind of put all these things together, we create a system where energy savings projects can earn an incentive for the actual grid value that they create. And that's sort of like the mechanism by which we do that. And I'll get into more detail on each of these. So the demand flex market, really, that's what we're, with all of those components, we're able to create this marketplace where aggregators can submit projects into the market based on their business model, their technology, solutions that they use, finance those projects in whatever way they see fit to deliver the projects to the customers, and the customers benefit from getting, savings on their utility bill. The utilities benefit, and customers also get, increased comfort and everything like that. Utilities get the benefit of energy savings, peak reduction, carbon reduction. And because the utilities are getting the value out of those projects that the aggregators are implementing, the aggregators then get paid for the actual performance and the actual value that their projects deliver. So that's kind of full circle how everything works. Savings that a project delivers are not uniform throughout the year. If you have if you're going to install an efficient HVAC unit at a home and it's going to save, let's just say 1,000 kilowatt hours, it's not going to be distributed evenly across the year. On the left-hand side here, this is actually like a deemed savings load shape for a residential HVAC installation. And on the left-hand side, you see an average day, average savings of a day in the year. And you can see that HVAC savings are going to be concentrated in the afternoon and evening when it's particularly warm and people are using more HVAC. And on the right-hand side, you can see that the savings are also not distributed evenly across the year. More savings in the summer months. Every single one of those peaks there represents a different month, and that's sort of the average savings by month. And so a project that is delivered to the grid obviously has a unique savings profile. And that unique savings profile, when those savings occur, is actually going to dictate the value that project has to the utility, and therefore ought to, unlike an old deemed incentive program, when the savings occur, because that's so tied to the value of the project, that should dictate the value that you get for your incentive. And so this is the avoided cost curve that we're looking at here. On the left-hand side, you can see non-summer months, a kilowatt hour saved is worth roughly 3 cents per kilowatt hour pretty consistently throughout the year. In the summer, those values get significantly higher during peak times, gross peak, net peak, up to above 50 cents per kilowatt hour. So, again, this plays into that whole concept that when you save is as important as how much you save. And by being able to actually measure savings at particular hours throughout the year, we're able to value a project based on the actual grid value that it delivers. Another great piece of this is that because it is the aggregators, the folks who are actually implementing the projects that are delivering that value through these market access programs, aggregators are paid directly for the savings that they're able to achieve. These incentives do not go to end use customers unless if you as the aggregator want to pass it along. The way that really functions is once a project is installed, we measure the performance of the project for a year. That project is going to accrue value as the savings are measured at the meter. When the project creates enough value to cover the program administrative costs, After that point, all the value that the project accrues goes directly into your aggregator, your portfolio. And at the end of every quarter, as an aggregator with multiple projects in your portfolio, at the end of every quarter, you're going to be paid out for all of the value that all of your projects have created beyond those program administrative costs. It's going to be paid directly to you. So there's essentially going to be fixed gates throughout the year when you're going to get paid for the value that your projects have created. And the more projects that you have in your portfolio, obviously, the more the more that payment is going to be. And so back to this graphic, most utility programs provide a fixed rebate based on estimated savings. Market access pays for grid value delivered. This is significant. This is, I would say, specifically important when we're thinking about the reliability emergency, which is like really geared at reducing summer peak. We have a model where we can actually target peak savings by valuing those higher because they're more valuable, and measure performance and understand if those savings are actually delivered. Your payment, again, is going to be based on the hourly savings times the grid value at those hours. And it's going to be multiplied. This is really important, multiplied by the measure life. So technology that has, a longer assumed lifespan, because those savings are going to, hypothetically speaking, persist for longer into the future. You actually are going to get paid out on that value in the first year. And there is some program overhead that's factored into the value of the project that's taken out, that your project has to accrue value above and beyond before you get paid. But once it does, all of the value that your project creates is going to go directly into your portfolio. A couple other really, really cool pieces here. Market access does not subtract measure costs, and payments are not capped at project costs. So this is really all about the value that your project creates for the grid, and then you basically getting compensated for having created that value. Effective useful life contributes to the total payment. So, again, based on the lifespan, the assumed effective useful life of the technology that's being installed, we're going to multiply the value that the project creates by that amount. And so, if you look at something like an HVAC retrofit, that has an assumed effective useful life of 15 years. So we'll measure the performance of your project over 1 year, multiply sort of the value that project creates by 15 times. The future cash flows get discounted, for the time value of money, but it's still, it is a large multiplier that creates a ton of value that you get paid out on the first year, the 1 year that we're measuring performance, sort of all stacks up. And so things like HVAC retrofits, 15-year effective useful life, building envelope, 20-year effective useful life, pumps and motors like a pool pump, 10-year effective useful life, smart thermostat, new install, 9-year effective useful life. So talking about getting big time value paid if your project performs in that first year. Here's just an example of the avoided cost curve. If we think about it in terms of like the 15 years of avoided costs, not just the 1 year. And you can see that now, a non-peak kilowatt hour, over 60 cents per kilowatt hour is the value of saving that kilowatt hour. And in the peak, above 2, getting close to $3 per kilowatt hour saved. So like really, really lucrative incentives for saving, really for saving energy across the year if you have a long effective useful life, but also incredibly high once you get into those peak periods. So this is really, really important to think about then, like if the incentives are performance based, what makes a good project? So in the old incentive world, these things maybe didn't play any role at all into determining what was a good project, or maybe they played less of a role. But like in market access, you have to be able to achieve like real savings and specifically peak savings. So like when I think about an old deemed incentive, like where you maybe wouldn't have to actually achieve any savings. If you had like an old air conditioner that was like so old and inefficient, like a customer wasn't even using it, and then you installed like a really high efficiency HVAC unit, and you can claim, you can submit a deemed incentive for that, and the efficiency rating of the new equipment is higher than the old equipment. You can get paid based on some assumed savings value, but in reality, if they weren't using the equipment beforehand, even if it was old and inefficient, and you install something new that is very efficient, if they're going to use something that wasn't being used now, that's increasing the load. And so like in market access, we're looking for real savings, real kWh reduction, real load reduction, that actually delivers grid value that you get paid on. No more deemed savings, no more assumed savings. This is real savings. So your projects have to really save energy. Peak savings specifically, the peak savings, they're incredibly valuable. And so any project that you have that can save over peak is going to obviously get valued higher, and you're going to get paid more for it. And then technology infrastructure that's going to deliver long-term savings along EUL, that's going to multiply the amount that you get paid, and therefore it's going to be, more valuable to you. Not to say that, if you're doing, some sort of, load shifting out of peak, I mean, there's still definitely value there, and you still definitely should think about that and the value that it could create in the market. But when you're implementing a project that has, technology infrastructure that's going to be there for a long time, you're going to get paid out for that long-term value that's going to create for the grid. So really the key is, good projects are projects that actually deliver savings, and that perhaps was not the case previously. So understanding what projects could be worth, there's some assumptions that are made here. These are based on deemed load shapes for each measure, and these are really meant to illustrate what the value could be. Every project is going to have its own value based on the actual savings that are measured at the meter. So this is really more so to illustrate than anything else. But if you look at like a smart thermostat that has a 9-year EUL, if you install a smart thermostat, it saves 250 kilowatt hours. That's worth roughly $200, and that's about 80 cents per kilowatt hour. And that's based off of sort of like the deemed load shape for a smart thermostat, like the deemed savings load shape. If you look at a pool pump replacement, 10-year effective useful life, if we say we're saving 1,000 kilowatt hours, worth close to $600 or 60 cents per kilowatt hour. Interestingly, the effective useful life of a pool pump is 1 year longer than a smart thermostat, but the average dollar per kilowatt hour value on the smart thermostat is higher. It's because a smart thermostat is targeting, almost exclusively, right, like peak reduction during, summertime cooling load. And so that's targeting the peak. The value is going to be higher. Just to kind of explain a little bit of the mechanics. If you look at an HVAC retrofit, you're getting into something that's hitting a lot of peak savings. It also has a long effective useful life. You're looking at about, roughly $1.18 per kilowatt hour saved, which is, I mean, that's incredibly high if it's actually delivering the savings, and then, building shell has a 20-year effective useful life. So, you're looking at, again, close to $1.20 in terms of value per kilowatt hour. So this really is just to illustrate that the amount per kilowatt hour that you can get paid for savings is incredibly high through these programs. And I mean, if your projects are delivering value to the grid, you should submit them into the market and get paid directly for that value that you're creating. Again, a project is really going to be worth what it actually saves, and the savings that a project creates, that's going to vary dramatically based on a lot of factors. HVAC, the size of the home, how leaky the home is, how often they use their AC, how much sun hits the home, and so the savings can vary, the estimated incentive can vary. And that's really, that's up to you all as the aggregator to understand the savings impact that your project is going to have. If you understand the savings impact that your project is going to deliver, will help you understand the value that is going to represent in the marketplace. So, as you can see here, an HVAC retrofit could range from 500 to 1,500 kWh save, maybe more, maybe less. And that could really, really impact the amount of incentive that you get, because that impacts the amount of value that the project delivers to the grid, which is really exactly what this program is all about. So, that's the mechanics of the program. That's how incentives are calculated. That's what projects could be worth. And when we think about how do we actually submit projects into the market, I think the thing that I want to highlight the most about this is that it's meant to be incredibly easy. And there's really only two pieces of paper, two documents that your customer is going to have to sign that's the only thing that's going to differ from a normal process that you run through with your customer. There's a couple steps you're going to have to do on the back end as the aggregator to validate that they qualify, and submit some information to Recurve to submit the project into the market. But from like a customer experience perspective, it's 2 additional pieces of paper they have to sign, and that is really the only difference. So the process is essentially, you're going to validate that your customer qualifies. All you need is their SAID off of their utility bill, their service address, service account ID. You throw that into our tool, and we'll tell you if the meter qualifies or not for market access. And really, it's just, do they have a clean 12-month baseline that we can model savings off of? Once you know that they qualify, you're going to project the value of your project in the market, and I have a slide about how that works. After you kind of know they qualify and you know what the value of the project is going to be in the market, you're going to discuss the project with your customer, get their approval. They say, yeah, let's do it. Let's install that new HVAC unit. Let's put in that pool pump. Let's throw in that new smart thermostat, whatever it is. And you can choose to disclose the incentive amount with them. You can choose to share the incentive amount with them. You don't have to. The incentive is paid directly to you for the grid value that you create. It's entirely up to you if you are going to share that with your customer or not. After you've kind of reviewed it with your customer and everything is good and you've decided what you're going to do with the incentive, you can implement your project. When you implement your project, when you complete that, you're getting your normal paperwork from your project where they sign off. They say, thank you so much. Everything looks great. They're going to sign a data authorization form, and they're going to sign a project completion form. And those 2 forms, those are Recurve forms. I have a slide that shows what those look like. That's the only thing that's different about your process from your customer's perspective. You're going to submit those 2 documents along with your final scope of work and an invoice and some photos of the install through our platform, the Demand Flex Market platform. And you're going to get a letter that says everything looked good. Those projects are going to go into your tracking portfolio, and you're going to collect your incentive dollars quarterly. It's really, really simple. It's designed to be really, really simple. It's designed to, not send you through a ton of, engineering calculations and, documentation and spec sheets and, Energy Star certifications. It's really designed to be incredibly simple because it's all about the actual energy savings that we measure at the meter. We are here to help. This is new. This is different. It's gonna be a little bit different than other incentive programs you've worked with in the past. And we understand that, and we want to make ourselves available to you to help you understand how to value your projects, how to discuss certain aspects of this with your customers if you so choose to. We're here to be a resource for you. So, the key is to be able to forecast your incentive payments with confidence. If you know about what your projects are going to be worth in the market, you're going to be in really good shape. And if you bring to the table savings forecasting of the work that you're doing, if you know about how much your projects are going to save energy wise, will help you match up your load shapes with the avoided cost curve, will help you understand what your incentive payments are going to be, when you can expect to see those, help your team understand what a good project is. So we're here for you, and we want to help you out with that. So especially as you're going through your first couple of projects and submitting your first couple of projects, trying to value your first couple of projects, leverage our team, because we're here to help, and we want you to be successful with this program. Here's a quick look at the project value estimator itself. This is something that when you sign the FPA, you get access to this tool in the Demand Flex Market platform. You can see kind of at the top, those are the inputs. So really you're inputting the utility territory, the climate zone, the sector, the load shape, the effective useful life, the kilowatt hour and therm savings. And then that last piece is about peak savings. So you can adjust that marginally. That's not super important. But when you put all that information in, you get a total forecasted aggregator payment. So essentially what your project is going to be worth to you, and what it's worth, per kilowatt hour. You're also going to see what the projected administrative costs that your project is going to have to cover before you get paid. That's the project cost basis. But this is something that we can help you use the first few times. Absolutely, always happy to help you do this. But once you get comfortable and confident with this, you can, if you know what your savings are and you know what you're installing, you can forecast with a fairly high degree of confidence, what your projects are going to be worth in the market. Related to this project submission process being incredibly simple, these are the forms. On the left-hand side, that's the data authorization form that you have to get signed by your customer. On the right-hand side, it's like a 2-page document that they have to sign, related to, their project getting submitted into the market. There is a note where it says, I agree to allow aggregation of my savings through the demand flex market. It does not say anything about dollars. It does not say anything about incentives. That's entirely up to you if that's something that you want to disclose to your customer, but they will have to sign off that they agree to allow the aggregation of their savings. So that's something to be mindful of. And I think to be prepared to discuss what that means specifically, especially depending on what your plan is with sharing savings or sharing incentive or not sharing incentive. This is a quick look at the demand flex market portal. On the right-hand side, you can see the customer eligibility tool. That's where you input the SAID to check eligibility, enroll the project. That's where you click to just kind of upload some information about the project and submit it to us. On the bottom there, you can see the project value estimator tool, along with some other resources as well. But there's an online portal where you submit everything. It's incredibly easy. It's incredibly simple. It's very streamlined. It's all digital. You upload, a couple of documents and pieces of information to us, and we review it on the back end, approve it, and it just flows right into your portfolio for you to start getting paid based on the actual value, actual savings, actual value, grid value that your project delivers. So I think Philip and Chad, I think you guys both have, your companies have both gone through and signed the FPA. So, not a whole lot to say about that, but essentially that's how you become a provider, that gives you access to submit your projects in the market. Once you have that, you want to understand the value of your projects. Like I mentioned a couple of times, talk to us about that. We are here to help. We want to help you and participate, enroll your first project, get your feet wet, give it a shot. We'll walk you through every step of the way and help you feel confident about that. But that is all there is to it. It's simple. It's designed to be simple. It's all about performance. It's all about delivering grid value, submitting those into the market. We'll measure it for you, and we'll pay you based on how your project performs in the market. And that's about all there is to it. Matt, unless if there's anything you'd like to add, we could open it up for questions if there are any.
Yeah, nothing to add from my end. Yeah, definitely time for some Q&A if you guys are interested. All right, thanks, Chad. Appreciate it. Just shoot us a note if you have any questions after. What happens if we have a project that does not result in energy savings counted against you? No, so there's no financial penalty for non-performance. You effectively just wouldn't get paid. But even if there's okay, do we get access to energy usage? Yes. So what would happen is if you submit a project, you'll have access to the Recurve platform. And in the Recurve platform, once savings are calculated, you'll start seeing the accrual of those savings in our platform. And happy to follow up offline too to show you what that looks like. Does this program require any additional third-party testing or measurement equipment to be installed? No, that is a very important kind of component of the market. So everything we do is based on measuring at the smart meter at the building. So we would not typically bring in any kind of sub-metering or third-party metering information or data. The one exception to that would be if solar is on the premise, we would need the solar inverter data. And we use that for some of the mathematics and pulling that out of the baseline effectively. But beyond that inverter data, there's no need for any other testing or measurement equipment. How would you get invert? So the aggregator has to provide that in that case. So if you're doing a project on a site with solar, it would be the aggregator responsibility to support getting that data. And that could be something as simple as sending us like a spreadsheet with 8760 data upon install. So no, it's a bit of a hurdle, but we're very flexible in how we can accept that data. But again, that's only for sites that have solar. we submit applications for older jobs? Oh, so for MCE, Tyler, do you remember when the residential program launched? I want to say it was like early March.
Yeah. I don't know specifically offhand.
Yeah, I think it was early March or early April. We'll look at when the actual launch date is, but you can submit projects as early as when the program launched. For broader market access, that's more on the commercial side, but that's provisionally accepting projects right now, even before full launch. So feel free to follow up offline if you have any specific jobs there, and we'll dig into the details with you. How long do rebates? Yeah, we typically refer to them as incentives, by the way. How long do they take to be paid? So they're paid out on a quarterly basis, and that'll be kind of a calendar quarterly cycle. So if you installed a project today, for example, the first April, May, end of June would be the first cycle of payments, provided you accrued enough savings to be paid out in that time. And then there's always some lag time of getting the data in, calculating the savings, and sending that out, which might be like a 30 to 60-day lag time. But then over the course of 1 year, you'll be paid out for the full value for the entire useful life of that project. So in that example, if you put in a new HVAC unit, I think it's like a 15-year useful life. So for 4 quarters, you'll get paid for that accrued value. And then by the end, you'll be made whole essentially for that 15 years of value that HVAC unit's gonna deliver. These are really good questions. So there we go. Okay. Oh, there you go. All right. You'll get the real deal from Tyler.
Yep, that's right. We'll dive into all the hairy details, and this is honestly, this is great context. You can kind of, take some time and ruminate on it and think about it a little bit. And then any other questions you have, we can talk about, and we can, talk about some of those projects you have if we want to start looking at getting them submitted too.
Well, excellent. Appreciate you taking the time. All right. Well, have a good rest of the day. We'll talk to y'all soon.